Yep.
Okay. So as I said, I'm Tricia Hopkins. I'm the Human Resources Manager, and I'll provide you staff support. The report that I emailed to everyone was the prior report. This is something that is expected to be done every 4 years. So the concept obviously is to make changes that will not affect the current council and is intended to be implemented after the election. So any recommendations that you make will not be for the current, unless somebody obviously seeks re-election and is successful with that, it will not by legal definition be expected to affect the council that is sitting now. So by resolution, which you all have the resolution as well, you could see that you are legally charged under that resolution to come together as a commission and make those recommendations. And that necessarily will end up in a presentation to the council with regard to your findings and recommendations. If you've read the report, you see that the prior assembly, the prior commission looked at or offered opportunities for members of the current council to come and speak to them. That's just the way it happened last time. I'm as your staff support, I'm not advising you on what methods you want to use and what kind of information you're seeking, and what methods you'll go to get additional information. But I will hope that any ideas that you have that need my support, that I'd be able to respond to that and help you through that. The agenda was also set out and should be also online. I really just took a stab at it because as your staff supporting, just to get us going, I don't expect that I'd be establishing your agenda for future meetings, but just to have something to get this inaugural meeting off. Kind of a call to order, take attendance, review the resolution that established the commission. There has always been a chair, so you'll probably want to select a chairperson who would kind of be responsible for gathering the members together and moving business along, and then give you a chance to discuss process and the timeline associated with that. If you read the resolution, your timeline is just quickly evaporating. So Ashley's here. I don't know if she'll be able to comment on whether that's a hard and fast timeline, or they can make a preliminary report and then go back and.
Generally, they want it's a pretty hard and fast resolution deadline because they want to get it done before the next election sort of gears up and takes place.
Yeah.
I'm subbing in for Carrie Berger tonight. She's out. She'll be your normal law office liaison. I've provided her with all of my materials from last time because I staffed this commission last time. So she'll take a look at that and hopefully get up to speed for you guys by your next meeting.
Yeah. But given the deadline that's in the resolution, we'll probably need to meet often enough before that to get to that place. It's nice that you have a prior report, which would give you, some substance there. It's within the law. I think what we're attempting to do is establish if indeed there would be any change to what compensation is provided to the council members and to the mayor. And I believe we're also responsible for the city manager. I know there was a lot of discussion last time about that. It includes any recommendations with regard to expense accounts, any supplemental funds that are available to council members. And in preparation for this meeting, I've gotten a few, not nearly as many as I had hoped I would have for this evening, but I've gotten a few reports that have been published for commissions in City of Rockville. And then because we're a city within Anne Arundel County, what compensation is provided to the elected officials in the county. And so I have those documents which I can share with you if you want to use that to look at. Again, they're in a similar situation to us. It's, what was chosen before they get into their own review commission and then set those rates. So we're kind of backward to when their last commission met, and comparing ourselves to that, or however you want to address that.
Well, I'd like to see them. You said if we want to see them, right?
Yes, I can forward that to all of you.
Yeah, I'd like to see them.
Yeah. So like I said, I have the commission. I was able to get the salary review commission from the City of Rockville. And then I have the resolution from the county, as well as what they publish in their law to indicate what elected officials are paid.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
Thanks.
So what you'll get from me is basically a forward of an email I've sent to myself that had those attachments in it. Trying to do this from my phone, so we'll just see. Allison, you're
you don't have-
AW Giddings, aren't you? AW.
Yeah, I'll give you a better,
Okay.
I find, sorry, I'm usually,
And when I said would like to see them, that didn't mean right now, but.
Oh, okay. Well, I will send it to you after this meeting.
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm
I'm
responsive here.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'll do that. I promised I'll send that to you right after the meeting.
That'd be great. Thanks.
So whatever method you like to use, probably at this point, I think attendance is pretty evident. It's easy to see the names on the screen. What you might want to do at this point is whether you want to review, do you want to review the resolution together? Any questions? If you've already reviewed it and you don't have any questions, I'll leave that up to you whether you even need discussion.
I mean, I looked at it and don't have any questions. I thought it was pretty self-evident, but I'd be willing to listen to anybody else. So
does the resolution provide any guidance other than the actions that we have to take? Does it include anything perhaps from the charter that talks about the value or the types of compensation, or is that completely up to us?
Actually, as far as I know, I don't think it really informs you much more than what's in the law.
Okay.
Yeah, it gives broad categories depending on the position, but no, nothing beyond that.
Okay.
I mean, I would suggest, part of what might be at issue is the city's ability to provide funds for, which is, part of what you're doing in terms of presenting to the council. But it's really not a good position for the council to be in to try to dissuade you or direct you in what that should be. Now, I think the interviews that were had before were, to provide some perspective on, like practically how things work in terms of the compensation level and the expense funds that were provided.
Can we talk about that a little bit? It's sort of actually interested in your experience 4 years ago going through this exercise. What, sort of
So last year,
everyone
or
meet with
last-
and what was the process, how they laid it out? Yeah.
Yeah.
The last time, the big issues at the time were city manager compensation, just because we had a few of those coming in and out.
Yeah.
And I would call the travel educational fund for council members were the two big issues. Generally speaking, what they looked at is they looked at prior history, they looked at surrounding jurisdictions for comparables, especially for the city manager. I think they looked at comparables and local jurisdictions as well as, I think, a little farther out nationwide. For the travel courses, they looked at things like how much MML charges for education,
Mhm.
how much you would need, to do like the annual trips and conventions and conferences. We did, if memory serves, and it's been a while, but we did accept written comments or even verbal interviews with the various positions. Always taken with a grain of salt, but if they could come in and sort of provide a justification beyond just we want a raise or we want more money, we would let them set out reasons for why they thought, something would need to change, not necessarily for them, because it doesn't necessarily apply to them, but just for the position in general.
Yeah.
I think the mayor's compensation was not an issue. I don't think anyone really did one way or another on that. And I don't know if it'll be an issue this time. I think the council members, I don't know what the council members want this time. But so, yeah, we looked at the general process is we looked at what we had now and what was in the past, and if we've done any recent raises. Then we looked at other surrounding jurisdictions, and then we did also take comments from the elected officials themselves. And then I think we might have also gotten some feedback from directors or similar. But
I
that
don't know. You might know better about that. I don't recall that. I know
well,
that
I think we heard from not the specific directors. So
Oh,
we heard from like human resources manager, we heard from you.
right.
I think we also talked to the finance director. I think we may have talked to the city council associate just to see what expenses had been incurred for the council members,
Right.
Related to like what and this in a COVID year, it's a little weird, but sort of we got the past history for what trainings and educational things they had signed up for to sort of get an idea of how much that they had asked to spend. So that's sort of staff input as to extra expenses beyond supplies that the city already spends. So the city manager range was set pretty broadly last time. I don't know if
Well,
if
I can
that'll
comment
be-
on that if you like.
Yeah, so I mean, they looked at a variety of things. There's no real set protocol for it or procedures. The resolution is about as much instruction as there is.
Yeah. You can tell from the report around the city manager's compensation that the concern was that there was, some difference between the city manager's pay and the highest paid director. And
Yeah.
so to that extent, I can share with you and we'll send to you our current pay scale so that you can have that as a point of reference and know that, most directors are at an A20 unless they're the police chief or the fire chief, and then they have a separate scale. So you can literally see that on the pay scale. That's something to take into consideration. I also have, because the city participates in a local government personnel association, which is public HR association. I have a report of what the top executive position is paid in counties, both large and smaller, and large and small cities, those that participated anyway. So you can see what the range is, you can see what the midpoint is, you can see what people are actually being paid. And I'm getting a lot of attention here, so I apologize. And so that report might be helpful to you as well. And then knowing that when you get into the benefits side of things for the city manager, that typically tends to be what we offer other employees. And that's going to be relatively true with other jurisdictions as well. But I can also get you a benefit summary if you want that. I will try to get you information on what benefits are provided to council members as well, because that's obviously part of a compensation package. You know, whether health insurance is indeed offered, whether, you know, there's a retirement option, whatever those other benefits or elements might be, if I can find that. I did reach out to the Maryland Municipal League to see if they have a survey. They typically do survey their member jurisdictions, and just to see if they had anything on record that I could quickly get instead of having to go and look for legislation and look for salary review committee or council compensation committee reports. You know, that's quite an exploration sometimes. And then what I couldn't rely on is what's in their charter or in their code, because a lot of times what you'll have is whenever there was a change to their code or their charter, they might have just made reference to here's the rate, and it doesn't really mirror what's going on currently. Because for example, I think it's in the Rockville report. Excuse me a moment. Sit down, please. So in the Rockville report, they talk about using a CPI indicator so that the rates will go up in accordance with the CPI. That's, again, just another method of dealing with that. I will say the city manager, the language in Article 3 that references the city manager's pay rate references a range only, but then talks about cost of living increase given every 2 years. Speaking as the HR manager for the city of Annapolis, that's challenging when you don't do across the board increases except every couple of years. And then what does that mean? Does that mean then you give them last 2 years worth in a one fell swoop, or, you know, exactly how does that work? So when we get to that portion of it and you get into debate, I would like to offer you some feedback, maybe that's the best word to use, about how administratively some of the language that's in the code is a challenge.
Okay.
Tricia, I would say that all of that sounds like excellent information. I don't know that I have kept track of everything that you spoke of. But it seems to me that certainly there are the categories of what is the current compensation in terms of the salaries, the fringe benefits, the allowable expenses.
Yeah.
And then what has been executed of those things. And then what are the comparables?
Right.
And then I guess the other thing that I'd love to hear is what's the city's ability to pay now as compared to 4 years ago? I think to me, those are the big categories.
Yeah, and in my research, Allison, I see there's such variety, and a lot of times, you know, I came here to the city from the county, so I worked for the county for a long time, and before coming here about maybe nearly 8 years ago. And so I've been through the cycles of these kinds of studies because they are every 4 years, and the timing is everything, you know, and some of it is political will and wherewithal. You know, when it's coming up, it's like, okay, so you're in a period of time where maybe the rest of the workforce is not seeing increases in pay, and yet you're sitting here ready to make a decision about increases in pay for an elected body. So I just want to be clear with you that there are all kinds of considerations that end up entering into what ultimately is a recommendation. And I'm not trying to lead this board at all. I'm just trying to be reflective of that. And you know that even though there's data and even though there's information, you have that to weigh.
Mhm.
You mentioned the timeline. Can you talk about the timeline? What are we looking at as far as when a report should be expected?
Well, it looked to me like that time that deliverable was February the 5th, if I'm not mistaken.
What?
Darn, I had a copy of the resolution sitting right here.
The 8th, I think.
Pardon me?
The 8th?
The 8th.
Yeah. That's what I see.
Well,
Yeah. So I think we're going to have to find some time to meet. Like, what does your calendar look like now?
well, I'm pretty open, at least on Zoom, but physically it's going to be a challenge for me. So
Well, I think we're very well set up for doing this
Yeah.
via Zoom. That is actually the city's expectation with most of our boards and commissions. There's no expectation to meet in person. Our council is meeting and having virtual meetings. So certainly as a commission, we're well within our expectation to do exactly what we're doing right now.
It seems like that. I mean, the first thing we'd have to do pretty quickly is figure out who officially we want to hear from, and you know, and that would probably dictate the schedule of trying to schedule the Zoom things with with those folks, whether it's the finance director and council people or whoever.
Right.
Especially if because obviously, I assume just like this meeting, the expectation was it'll be done by Zoom and sort of in the open meeting rules. So
Yes.
we'll have to sort of schedule that to make sure we can get people to do it. But I think that's probably the first thing is figuring out that list that you round off in addition to sort of having all those documents to look at. But and hopefully by be able to sort of have people talking to us.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. Is in terms of what the finance director is involved in now, she's got like an entire week of meeting with department heads and the city manager over budget. We're all making our budget presentations this coming week.
I bet.
So
She might be able to delegate though
yeah.
in her office.
And honestly, if some of what you're looking for is information, like what are the council members spending their discretionary fund on, tell me, and I'll be the go-between to ask for reports or that kind of thing. If it can be expressed better through reporting and data. And then just minimal time then, in terms of questions that you may have with the person. We can also decide what time of day to meet. I assume that the challenges of meeting as a volunteer board was, a volunteer commission rather, is, people work, they have a job. So I didn't want to put any restrictions on my availability for you, but we do have restrictions when it comes to the availability of the Zoom account and the support for that. So that's more the constraint. I didn't want to make myself unavailable to you. I just want to make sure that we have a platform to do it in.
Well, looking at the calendar, it seems that we really just have tonight, Friday, and then next week, right?
Yeah. Time to
so-
write a report.
Right. I'm available, just look at my schedule, every night next week, but I'm not available until after 4 o'clock at the earliest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
With
can be
helping to
available.
write your report, I can send a Word version out so that you guys can sort of use that as a template.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks, Ashley.
I'm pretty open in my schedule. I'm retired now, so I can be available unless something else comes up in the meantime. So, but
Yeah, and I have a lot of flexibility in my schedule, but with doing Zoom meetings for my job all the time. So, if we can slot in a time that works for everybody, I'm happy to do it. However,
Fit it in.
yeah, my thought really, and was there someone else on the list I saw that was supposed to be on the commission, or is it just
Faye Curry.
okay? Fake Curry.
Yeah, you probably weren't online yet when we said that. I tried to reach Faye. All I had was her business contact information, and what I finally discovered was that she was out of the office. So,
Gotcha.
so I will make sure I catch up with her. I've left her messages. I've sent her emails. When she gets back in the office, probably
Right.
next week. We'll figure it out.
Can I interject and ask Ashley if there's any flexibility on the report date? It seems a little tight.
yeah,
Well, I just was checking the resolution and it does say shall submit by February 8th. 'Cause that's their next council meeting. I mean, in theory, at that meeting, they could make a resolution on the floor to extend it. I can ask. I mean, if you miss it, I'm not sure that there's any penalties built into the
Yeah.
law.
What are they gonna do? Yeah.
We're not going to come after you with pitchforks, but
You're all fine.
yeah, I can ask if we can maybe get something up to city council to maybe officially extend that a smidge and see what they're willing to do. I'm not I wasn't involved with how they picked this date, so but I will ask.
Yeah, I was just looking at the notes you sent from the last time, right? And the group started meeting in like October, right? So I think it
Yeah, they had a much
that date.
larger.
So
Yeah.
I know there are some deadlines related to, because then once your report goes in, it goes to the council and they, if I remember correctly, they have the ability to lower the compensation but not raise it. Is that correct, Ashley?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So there is a timeline and all of that has to get done before the
Yeah,
election.
and tied to the budget, right? It's got to be before the budget gets started.
Actually, I think it's before the election because it doesn't take.
If it has,
Oh, no, you're right. Ian, I'm sorry, you're right, because
if it has a budget impact, right? You'd have to.
it would have a budget impact in this fiscal year because the election happens mid-year. Yeah.
And I would just say, from my perspective, when I was talking about the finance director, I mean, I think, right, like the real critical part to your point about doing this now versus 4 years ago, I think just from sort of where I sit and having been on the council, I think it's going to be a very tough budget dynamic for everyone, right? And so the idea that you would be proposing any increases would be
Yeah.
complicated. So, I mean, I think, right, the first step would be hearing from them of what they think the budget process is going to be like. But we get further down the road of should you push this number around or not? I mean, right? I mean, from my perspective, one recommendation is just leave it as is, right? Like, but so the question is, and if not that, then getting into it. So I think that's the first hurdle we got to clear, right, Dewey?
I agree with you, Ian.
And you are making recommendations for 4 years.
Yep.
And what you'll see when I send the information to you that I gathered from some of the other jurisdictions is that it's this rate at first year, it's this rate at second year, it's this rate at third year, it's this rate at fourth year. So when you're going through your decision making, or when you get to the point of making recommendations, bear in mind that it's not a flat rate that you really should be looking at what the proposal is for each of those years.
Okay.
And then there's nothing precluding you from saying it's X, and it'll be X all the way through.
So assuming we sort of have next week to work with, I think, there's a time period that we could use to review a lot of the documents that Tricia was talking about, as well as, I don't know if perhaps now we can pull together the list of folks that we would like to hear from, or that we would welcome to hear from, so that those can be arranged for next week. And then maybe we could meet early next week, having reviewed some of these documents, and then putting forth some of the questions as a discussion of a group that we might have. And then we can hear the input, sort of understand what the budgetary environment is and what questions folks might have, and then get back together from there by Wednesday. Write a report on Thursday, review, and then say, yeah.
I think you're right, Allison.
Okay. So who might we want to hear from?
Ashley, do you recall how it was decided among the council people who came forward to speak to the commission? Did they talk
I'd
among
have to
themselves?
go back and look at my notes. I don't honestly remember. I think the offer was put out to all of them,
Uh-huh.
and some wanted to and some were not interested.
Okay.
But again, we were working with a lot more time. So,
Yes.
But yes, I think the invitation went out to all of them,
Okay.
but not all of them were cared. So,
And by all of them, you mean everyone, the mayor, the city council members, and the city
correct.
manager? Okay, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm okay with offering that. Are you guys?
Definitely. Yeah, no, I think it's
Okay.
And as I recall, that request went from the chair to those individuals, so it was like kind of funneled. So
Have you all selected? I don't think we've selected a chair. Is anybody interested in serving as chair?
Faye, since she's not here, right?
Faye was on the commission last time.
Either Faye or Ian, because Ian, I think you have more experience in the city government than I.
And that's the same with me.
Sure. No, I'd be happy to do it.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be your shortest commission ever.
Yeah, so the list is basically, right, everyone who's mentioned in the report, and say, right, we're gonna, with a sort of an email out to them just saying we're scheduling Zoom time early next week, if you're interested in talking with us about what you think's working well or what should be changed, and just sort of
Yep.
a blanket sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
And I can put a public post up as well if you want to receive public comment, I can put up a link where people can submit public comment to your
Sure.
committee as well. If you'd
I
like.
know Chris Ledoux is watching because he's sending me emails.
So Chris, I'll have a link up there tomorrow for you.
Yeah, and then I mean, whether that is through I think, right, because we cover the city manager, I think normally you look to the city manager or the finance director to sort of give you the landscape of what's coming, but I think we probably, yeah, he probably can't do that, right? But so whoever would be recommended to sort of talk about that with us, I think would be helpful sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And other than that, I don't have any great
I think the
ideas.
city
about it.
manager came and talked last time. I think it was it Tom Andrews at that point? I think it was Tom Andrews at that point, and he
It was Tom, yeah.
discussed it with us.
Cool. Yeah, no, if David wanted to do it, I think it'd be good.
Yeah. I think he's got a really tight schedule next week, but I will figure it out.
David probably only needs 5 minutes. He's very concise.
But I'm sure there's anyone else who are obvious people. Who am I forgetting?
I don't think there was anybody other than myself, in.
I will check all my paperwork from last time. I looked at it briefly today, but didn't have enough time to look at it in depth. And if anything else pops from my last round of notes, I will shoot you guys all an email.
Okay.
Along with the Word version and Chris Ledoux's emails that he's sending me, and
Okay.
anything else I can find of interest.
Sounds good.
And are you okay with me as I find comparison information, just send it to you by email? So you just
That would be great.
Yep.
create your body of work to look at. And I'm perfectly fine too if there's additional pieces of information that you think I should be looking for, just let me know that.
Okay.
Like I said, I've reached out to the Maryland Municipal League. I'll follow up with them, see if they can supply me with some consolidated information. But in the meantime, I'll go hunting around the various websites of these other jurisdictions to see what I can pull in for you for consideration. In a pandemic, I'll tell you, in other work that I try to do, it's really challenging to get the experts to be able to answer your surveys. It's just so much better to do your homework and then say, is this the latest? And can you make sure I'm going in the right direction here? Because then they'll give you that time, whereas it'll just sort of, make you wait otherwise. And we don't have time to wait, so.
As for meeting time next week, the Zoom account is available. Let's see, if you give me a day, I can give you the times.
Allison, what did you say, Wednesday?
Oh, no, I'm available every evening. I
No,
just,
but I mean, was that the date that you thought maybe we can get together after getting all the material and research and,
I guess I was thinking we sort of needed to have our final meeting on Wednesday if we need to publish on Monday. But, if we could get documents now, I'm happy to meet on Monday to discuss the documents.
that would be good with me.
Yeah, and then come up with any questions that we might have so that as we're listening to folks, we know what to ask for.
Yeah. Well, like I said, what I have already, I'll send to you after this meeting by email.
Okay.
Monday after or at 7 o'clock is available,
Okay.
or early. I think that's the only evening slot that I have. Does that work for you all?
That's fine.
Yeah.
And that is February 1st.
Yes.
Do you think that should we schedule time slots to hear from folks, or should we wait to hear what their time is available?
I'll defer to Hillary, but Zoom spots tend to fill up, so you might be better at this point just to pencil yourself in
Mhm.
and then cancel. But Hillary has more experience with that. But as far as I can tell, when I've had boards and commissions that try to switch around times, there's just not a lot of openings last minute.
I would concur.
Okay.
If you want to set up a second meeting time, I'm happy to do that. Next week doesn't look too bad. So
Ian and Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of basically like if we could block an hour maybe on Tuesday, if there is time, then it would give you time to go to the council and everybody and be like, hey, they're available this time, and see who wants to do it, right? Like, I think that's, instead of trying to sort of pick down each of them individually.
Yeah, that sounds good.
No, we're going to have a Zoom call on Monday, right? What will be our agenda? Are we going to just review the information that we received from Tricia and talk about other things that maybe come to our mind in reviewing all this stuff? I mean, is that the,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get an expectation in my mind, what I should be planning on.
That sounds good to me, Joe.
So we go through this, have our Zoom call, and then sort of get organized for a call with other people on Tuesday, or if we can do Tuesday or Wednesday. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, like if we try to do it all in one call, right? We'd be trying to sort of.
No, that's good. I'm just trying to get, organized in my own mind what we're going to do Monday and Tuesday and going forward. I know we have to sort of push along on this, so.
Exactly. Yeah. No. So if Hillary, what's on Tuesday? Do you have any times?
I think it's the same. Let's see, Tuesday. Yes, the same. At 7 o'clock, you could do it.
Does that conflict with anything that council and people would be in, or?
Oh, actually, it does. I'm sorry. There's a Rules and City Government Committee at the same time. So let me look. Hold on.
In the evening?
Mm-hmm.
That only takes 3 of them out, though.
Yeah, actually, that's probably in the afternoon. Hold on, let me.
It's usually it starts.
Yeah, I think rules is usually like 4:30.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I was trying to send you your calendar event for Monday. Okay, so for Tuesday, yes, they're 4 to 6. So as long as it's after 6:30, that's fine.
That works for me.
Can we do 6:30 rather than 7? That would be preferable to me, but
Sounds fine.
that's Tuesday, right?
Mhm.
And Ashley,
Monday's 7 o'clock, right?
Yeah, that's already been scheduled.
Yeah.
Do you have a question, Hillary? Sorry, I was distracted by the one and
no,
a half year.
will Carrie be back next week then, or is it you for law?
I think it will be her, but if there's a conflict, me and her will just sort it out amongst ourselves.
I'll invite you both.
But yeah, I talked to her today. She just got her wisdom teeth out, so she should be back next week.
Well, is that it?
I think you've covered what you
Need to do.
Yeah, I think we got.
Other than officially ending your meeting.
Okay.
I'll leave that up to Ian.
We need a motion.
I motion to end the meeting.
There you go. I'll second that.
All in favor?